Good morning. Good morning. How the devil are you doing this fine day? Hope you're all fit and well. I hope you're also cool because it is warm today. Warm yesterday as well. That's where I was. And yes, if you look very closely, managed to spell my name wrong. Do these people not know who I am? Yeah, good morning, everyone. I'll be talking more about Hillhead a bit later on. We're going to go over to this first of all. Good morning, all you sweaty ass cracks, plant-born addicts. 29 degrees already. Bloody ridiculous. I sat here and watched a bit of football last night after I got back from Hillhead, kind of putting off going to bed because I was expecting it to be bad. I had a cool shower before I went to bed last night, laid down, and then the alarm went off. I did okay. I've had about 3 litres of water already. Welcome back. Thank you very much indeed. Andy Dalvell. Morning, everyone. I was actually sweating riding my motorbike into work this morning. My machine is showing 33 degrees at the moment. Yeah, you notice that lots of people that work in schools, they've been given the day off. Have you? Have you, balls? There we are. Let's have a look. Mark Whiting is in the house. Morning, Mark. Are you warm, my friend? I bet you are. Dan saying, oh my God, really? In truth, I mean, I filled in the form. I think I may have actually spelled my name wrong. So I do have this big collection of lanyards over here. I'm not sure I'll keep that one because it's not right. Jim Turner is here as well. How was Hillhead for you, Jim? I have many thoughts on Hillhead. In actual fact, I will tell you about this a bit later on. I'd written a morning monologue. While I was away, we stayed in a really nice Airbnb. Weird, but a really nice Airbnb. And I sat there and wrote my morning monologue for today. And then having walked around in the blazing heat at Hillhead yesterday, I have many thoughts. So I've parked up that morning monologue and I'm going to do this today instead. Some positives, some negatives, some concerns for the future, not just of Hillhead, but also of exhibitions as a whole. I'll come to it. I will come to it. So yes, I can't be overly critical because I had a good day. You know, I caught up with some people I know, some people I didn't know, but now do know. The usual kind of thing. But I must admit, I left feeling a little bit underwhelmed. Is not even the right word, and disappointed isn't the right word. I just kind of. Okay. Mercy Johnston is here as well. Good morning to you as well. Loads to get through today, including that morning monologue, which normally I script these things out. This time I've literally just made a bunch of notes, partly as I was going around and partly when I had a chance to get back home and think about it. In many ways, I do like me a metaphor. In many ways, the England performance last night was a lot like Hillhead. Yeah. That's about what it was. Yes, I wasn't underwhelmed or overwhelmed. I was merely whelmed. You're absolutely right. Before we get to all of that, we do have this small matter here. Andy Darvell says, what did you think of that massive hammer that was striking every 30 seconds or so? I didn't see it, but I know Fred was incredibly frustrated with it. He had the drone up in the air when he first saw it, and then he aimed a camera at it, and nothing happened. So he went back to the drone and it struck again. So he brought the drone down and he aimed the camera at it and he waited and he waited and he waited and he walked away and it went again. So in the end, he just went, nah. What was it like in the hole? Bet it was hot. Yeah, it was very hot. What I would say though is the organisers did a very good job. Lots of there's drinking stations around Hillhead. Traditionally, there's a water main that runs through there, so you can fill up water bottles. But they were so concerned about the punters and the exhibitors as well. There were free bottles of water pretty much everywhere. So there was no good excuse to be dehydrated. What I would say, and I don't want to be overly graphic about this, I got up yesterday morning in our Airbnb, had a cup of coffee, went to the show, had a bottle of water. Did a bit, had another bottle of water, went to the press office, had a couple of cups of water, had another bottle of water, had a couple of cups of water. On the way home, I stopped off and I grabbed myself something to eat and I had a Fanta orange. And it was only when I got home, about, let me think, it's up at 6, didn't get home here until about 9. So about 15 hours later, I finally had a pee. Yeah. Jim says I was struggling a bit yesterday, but not with the heat. I think I've got a trapped nerve in my shoulder. Hillhead was what it normally is, so not overly impressive. Jim, you really have hit the nail on the head, and I will mention this a bit later on. One of the things that I had trouble getting my head round, and maybe I've just built up a nostalgia over the years. But back in the day, I used to tell everyone that Hillhead was my favourite show. It was very manageable, weather notwithstanding. Yes, once you're down in the pit itself, you can do it all in a day, which is exactly what I did. And you can get around and you can see all the major brands, and it's contained, and everyone's there. And I came away yesterday thinking, it's definitely not my favourite show anymore. Whelmed. I was purely whelmed. I don't even know if that's actually a word, but I left feeling whelmed. I'll tell you a lot more about it. It's quite a ramble at the end of the show. We'll come to that. First of all, we need to address this. Both of these companies that we've got in our Mini Excavator World Cup today were at the show yesterday, JCB in all their glory, and Lugong as well. Incidentally, I was filming. I'd finished filming on the JCB stand, had a long chat with a couple of the guys there, came off, walking along, camera in hand, and who's coming in the other direction? Lord Bamford. So I've got a bit of him on camera as well. Not to talk to him, he was deep in conversation, but I did actually manage to get him on camera. I do need, just very quickly, to start that poll, don't I? There you are. It's running now. I think somebody has just already voted for JCB. Who was that? Dan Cullen. Dan, you may have to vote again, because I hadn't actually started the poll, but that's what it looks like. Demo Darv is saying, Demo Darv, what is Demo Darv saying? 34 degrees now. Yes, it is. Scorchio. It is Scorchio indeed. A couple more votes for JCB there. I think we know which way this is likely to pan out. Obviously, all the usual suspects on the JCB stand: 715, 520X, 420X, a couple of new wheel loaders, which I didn't see coming. And I'm not entirely sure that JCB saw them coming either. On my way up to the show, stopped off for a cup of tea on the way up. A dreadful bloody journey up, 5 hours door to door. And stopped off, and somebody on from JCB was talking about the fact that they had a new wheel loader, the JCB 467. Turns out it's not 467. Apparently, it is actually a 480 or a 490, both of which were there. Going to say good morning to Mr. Malcolm Dyke, who is, he's a fairly regular here. He says, good morning. Good to meet you and Fred yesterday. Yes, we bumped into Malcolm Dyke. Never met him before. He found me. He hunted me down, and he walked away with a brand new Bobcat hat as a result. Good to meet you as well, Malcolm. Thank you very much indeed for your time. And I was talking to Tim Burnhope when I met Malcolm, and I mean, I don't think we could have it as a competition, but I kind of get the impression that Malcolm probably knows about as much about JCB products as Tim Burnhope. And that's not decrying Tim Burnhope. That's saying that Malcolm really, really knows his stuff. Had the crack with a couple of the JCB bods, which was sound. Had the crack at Lugong and Monroe. Seen a few folk I know, and buggered about 3 p.m. Yeah, me too. To be honest, I enjoyed Plant Works more than yesterday. I've got thoughts on that as well. I don't want to give away too much, because I do have this sort of long ramble, but next year we're going to have not one but 2 exhibitions. There's the newly reformed, newly relocated Plant Works, which is going to be taking place at the NEC, and then there's this UK Plant Operators exhibition as well. Based on all that I saw yesterday, bearing in mind Hillhead is every other year, feels about right. Every other year, we're not a big country. We're not a big. We're a relatively big market, but once every other year seems okay. And then next year we're going to have 2 exhibitions in a single year. And bearing in mind, both of them will be taking place in the same year as an Intermat. Yes, Malcolm says JCB announced the new 480 shovel too. I saw the 490. I didn't see the 480. I don't know where they parked that up, but I saw the 490. Jim says, my lad wants us to go to Balmer, so might do that instead of Hillhead. All I would say, Jim, is save some money, because Balmer is phenomenally expensive. You can go and stay in the heart of Munich around about now for about 30 quid a night. come Baumer time, that's £300 a night. Yeah, it literally, it doesn't just double, it doesn't triple, it goes through the roof. So start saving, get the piggy bank out and start sticking some stick some euros in there. I do have a banner to remind you of what's going on with our mini excavator World Cup. There you are. The choices today are JCB or Lugong. I've got a pretty good idea of how that is likely to go. I think the result here is fairly predictable, in much the same way as it would probably be equally predictable if we were to do the same competition, but in China. But we'll see. We'll see how all that pans out. Without further ado, I'm going to roll the intro, get this show on the road, because we do have things to look at. Let's do this. Just going to mention this. We just had this one from Mick Norton. Good morning from a hot and sunny Wakefield. If it's near a decent bus or rail link, we'd probably stay further out. Well, we did. We stayed about half an hour away and then drove in every day. The roads in and out of Baumer are absolutely fantastic. So it is doable, but it is phenomenally expensive. And I'll tell you what's in the show today, because I've just had a thing come through. Now, I'll explain in a moment. What I'm about to share with you is embargoed. I'm going to break the embargo because I can't believe what I'm reading. But let me do this bit first. It is Wednesday, the 24th of June. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition, the Lord High Chancellor of live streaming, the authentic, croaky voice of the global demolition industry. In today's show, Komatsu's new mini marvel, building a racetrack, Bomag-style, and what is covered by a Caterpillar customer value agreement. We'll get to all of that. And also, as I've already said, in today's episode of Mark's Morning Monologue, which is not really a morning monologue, it's just a bunch of notes strung together with some grammar, we need to talk about Hillhead. We need to talk about Hillhead, and I think we need to talk about exhibitions as well. But we'll come to that. Very quickly, I've just had a press release come through from the House of Lords. You see, these are the circles that I move in. Now, within the press, there is a thing called an embargo. I'm sure. How did Harvell breaking the umbongo? Yes, they drink it in the jungle. They did. Yes, but so basically, I don't know why this still exists. Back in the days of print, when everything was in newspapers and magazines, somebody would send out a press release or a statement, but they would embargo it so that it went out. Everybody got it at the same time, and everybody published it at roughly the same time. Now, bearing in mind that we now live in the digital age, and I've been sent this strictly embargoed until 1 minute past midnight on Thursday. No, not going to do that. So, in a letter to the government, published today, the cross-party House of Lords Built Environment Committee has concluded that children and young people not only care deeply about the places around them, but also have much to contribute to shaping them. The systems that educate young people, engage with them, and listen to them remain fragmented and uneven. Okay, so their recommendation. There's a lot here. I'm not going to go through all of it because I am breaking an embargo. Today's generation of children and young people are the most digitally connected in history. The committee heard evidence about the use of digital tools. I bet they had to explain what digital tools to the House of Lords after the House of Lords, particularly video games. Okay, video games including Minecraft, The Sims, and even Assassin's Creed are increasingly young people's first introduction to the themes of world building, construction, and design, and have become a pathway into the wider built environment sector. The headline for this is, use video games like Minecraft to engage with young people. There is a Built Environment Committee under the auspices of the House of Lords. We have had a skill shortage for as long as anyone can remember, and their solution, get kids to play Minecraft. Bullshit. Right, okay. Dan Cullen saying, I was on a mini digger yesterday and got burnt red. Yeah, I'm not surprised. There was some red faces around yesterday. I mean, I took no chances. I had this on, thing around my neck. I had long sleeves on. Not arsing about when it's this hot. Not doing it. Dan also says, in history, technology is only getting better over the years. This is why. Yeah, it is. Loads of votes coming in for the mini excavator World Cup, which is that. We'll come to that. But first of all, let's have a bit of cat, and then we'll have a bit of Komatsu. Let's start with the biggest, and then we'll go to the second biggest. Right, okay, first of all, Dan says, not a breeze here in Paddington. I got up this morning, made myself a cup of tea, and then I went out in the garden. I thought, I literally stood there in a pair of shorts. I thought, let the breeze cool my body. There was no breeze. There was nothing. Just baking heat. Mick Norton says, how do embargoes work when there are time zones to consider? Obviously, this one is for the House of Lords. It's a UK statement, so no problems with that. We have had them in the past. I had lots of them in the past. And basically what they tend to do is they do them according to locality. So we might get an announcement that we are allowed to publish on 10 o'clock in the morning on Thursday. Those in Central Europe will get it, but they'll be allowed to publish at 1 in the afternoon for them because, they're an hour ahead. The Americans are 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours behind us as well. It's all a bit of a pain in the ass. And as I say, we live in a digital world now. Embargoes don't mean a damn thing. If that's what you want to do, send us the message at 1 minute past midnight on Thursday the 25th. And we'll act accordingly. Don't give it to us 2 days in advance and say, "Oh, keep it to yourselves." Particularly when there's nothing there. If the entirety of that announcement is, "Or get kids to play Minecraft," they might just think construction is for them. What? Where's the secrecy in that? I don't know. Dan saying, I feel if you put a rotational attachment on that swan neck, it would be a great tool. That was for the Caterpillar thing. I wonder, is that possible? I don't know. But if anyone from Caterpillar is watching, maybe they'd be kind enough to answer. We're going to start with Komatsu. We've had a bit of Caterpillar. We're going to go to Komatsu. They've got a new 1.8 ton mini excavator in their armory, and it looks like this.
So you're in the market for a 1.8 ton excavator. Let's do a quick walk around to show you why Komatsu's PC18 is the right machine for you. The PC18 has many unique features which we refer to as Dentotsu, starting with the cast steel body and the additional bolts-on counterweight at the rear for extra stability. Maintenance is made easier with our tilt-over cab, providing unrivaled access to engine, pumps and hydraulics. Manufactured in Japan, the PC18 is one of the most reliable machines on the market. Reduced operating temperatures are achieved with side-by-side coolers and a large perforated panel. The PC18 features dual-side access, making it easier in tight working conditions. The large operator area is friendly for tall people like myself, and the 2-post ROPS allows for unobstructed view of the work area. One of the key features is the load-sensing Hydramine hydraulics. It allows power and precision of the work equipment with the machine able to lift, track and slew at the same time. It also has the same breakout force at idle as it does at full RPM. The PC18 long arms allow for a 2.4 metre dig depth and 4.27 metre reach, and variable track width allows the machine to go from 1300mm down to 980 for tight access situations. The The PC18 also has Komatsu's Comtrax monitoring system, allowing you to track your machine between various job sites at no extra cost. So that was a quick look at the Komatsu PC18 and its Dantotsu features. If you'd like to add one to your fleet, contact Komatsu today.
I'm going to take that banner away because it's obscuring things, and frankly, the game's almost up. I can't see Lugong making a last-ditch run at things. I'm going to go over to the chat, and I'd like you to bear both of these in mind because I'm going to come back to the main subject of these. But Jim says, so basically a nothing story press release. Right now, we have a generation of kids with the least amount of practicality, government education systems, and desire to academically further educate people is squarely to blame for this, and socialism's mania for paying people to not work. Dan says, I don't think this ridiculous idea they have will work. What they need is to have educational day tours on a site for kids to see the machines and how construction builds communities and friendships. Please, please hold those two thoughts, because that is another of my key takeaways from Hillhead yesterday. The absence of children. And it wasn't just the absence. It was the, I'll come to it. Let's do a bit of this.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
If you're doing 150, 160, 180 miles an hour down the home straight of a racetrack, you'd like to think that the ground underneath you is stable, level, and perfectly finished. Which is why Bomag have done this.
Welcome to Madrid, welcome to Bomag. This is where a racetrack is being built, and we are straight in the middle of it.
We are delighted to be part of this incredible challenge to build the speed circuit here in Madrid, the Mad Ring. We are on a more or less 5,400 meters length speed circuit with an incredible and remarkable turn, the turn 12 called La Monumental. My department, machinery department, takes care about all the pavement works in this circuit, so it's a challenging work. In terms of tolerance, we are under a new perspective. It's not just regular pavement, as you can find the road. We must to achieve a huge standard in terms of quality and intolerance, because here the cars must run above 300 km per hour, so there is no margin to any mistake. Bomag Ibérica helped us in identify 7 different units across Europe, which is remarkable by the time, but then also with the machine, but also with all technical requirements, for example, the bomb map and all the software and hardware that must to be on board in the machines in terms of compatibility with the pavement and also with all the software that the worksite must to carry on is critical and crucial during the pavement works. The compaction ensure good quality in the asphalt in terms of durability and traffic resistance. So taking care about not just the compaction itself, but also all the data that the rollers can bring to us is crucial. With this type of roller, we can achieve both at the same time. We can face for one line all the mechanical availability in terms of functionality, oil, lubrication, and so on, with 24% of slope in the turn, but also can bring to us all the compaction requirement that the project asks us. With Bomag, we can bring safety for the final drivers. So with this software, the operator inside the roller is not alone. The operator has every time all the information about his own activity and all the detail, but not just for him, but also for the rest of the rollers working together. So can bring directly to the consultant or the consultancy that are looking for every data and detail of the track, all the information that is required, and understand that the job is achieving the final result. In terms of cost efficiency, Bomag can bring us all the detail from the beginning, so we can do our jobs more efficiently and quicker than the regular standards.
All the units in the job site have a file manager. A file manager takes advantage for the operator. Three main advantages. Facilitate all the work because the operator know all the moment the level of compaction of the surface. We have a measurement of the temperature and the level of compaction, and the machine decides when the compaction is finished. The second advantage is we don't have risks over compactation. The third advantage is we have all the data in digital. We can recover all the information of all the job site.
In September, the Masterclass of Motorsports will take place here at Madrid. And remember, great events need great machines who deliver performance.
So yeah, there you are. That's I apologise for the accents, but you know, I think it was a worthwhile story. We've had comments here from, let me see, Jim, from Dan as well, about all things to do with getting children and young people into the industry. I've marked them, but I've not shown them because I think they apply more to the morning monologue. So I'm saving them. Gents, I haven't forgotten you. They will be aired, but they just seem more fitting with what's coming. So one more film to bring you, which is Caterpillar. So let's do this first.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Right, okay. I'm going to do this one very quickly. Mick Norton says, nice to see second pin position for Boom Dipper Link to offer change in Komatsu's geometry. Countless operators often think it's a spare hole, whereas in fact it's a deliberate design feature. It is indeed. Right, one final film. Caterpillar Customer Value Agreements. CVAs, that's what they call them. This is what they're all about. And more importantly, this is what they cover.
The CAT Customer Value Agreement brings hassle-free maintenance and ownership, security of dealer support, and peace of mind from equipment health management together in one plan. There are CVAs for owners who prefer to do their own maintenance, and CVAs for those who would rather their CAT dealer do it for them. And CVAs with dealer labor. You get more than just great parts. You get complete support. All scheduled maintenance, inspections, and fluid sampling are performed by CAT dealer technicians at the proper intervals and to exact specifications. The result? Less hassle, fewer disruptions, and the confidence that maintenance is done right every time. Maintenance is planned around your operation, not the other way around. And with the detailed service records kept by your dealer, you can get more out of your investment if you decide to resell. Let's talk about how the services and a CVA help catch issues early and help you plan ahead. One example is condition monitoring, which evaluates key elements like machine data and service history to identify patterns and provide real-time insights and information, all based on expert knowledge of your equipment and business. Then you have SOS fluid analysis, which uses fluid sampling data to identify early signs of wear or contamination before failures occur. And of course, you get our services commitment, which means you get parts and repairs fast. And if the part is delayed or a repair doesn't happen when promised, you get paid. CVAs help you stay ahead of the game with a plan for the unexpected. The goal is simple. Make your ownership costs more predictable, plan your service and repairs more effectively, and protect your investment over the full life of the machine. Your dealer is with you and your machine every step of the way. You run the business, we'll handle the service. Talk to your CAT dealer about a customer value agreement today and keep your work moving forward.
Mercy Johnson says, was that in response to your question the other day about what the next leader's plans are for this industry? I would imagine not. I mean, even by Andy Burnham standards, that would be rather quick. He hasn't even got the top job yet, but that would be rather quick. So no, I don't wield that kind of influence, I'm afraid. I'm going to say a very quick good morning to Jay Walters over on Instagram as well. Let's have a look. Jim Turner. Yes, the plus point from yesterday is that JCB still have the best employees fronting their products. All those I spoke to were knowledgeable and didn't glaze over when I voiced my gripes and suggestions of how things could be better. Very quickly, quick tale. I said I bumped into Tim Burnhope while I was on the stand, and I did. He told me a little story. I'm not sure this was supposed to be for repeating, but I'm going to tell it to you anyway because I've already broken one embargo today. So what the hell? In for a penny, in for a pound. So, you know the JCB 715 that we brought you a couple of weeks ago after we'd been up to see JCB? Turns out that was actually the brainchild of George Bamford, the soon-to-be chairman of the company. And apparently he's done it against better judgment. He said, we should bring back the ADT. It was a great product. We should bring it back. And virtually everyone went, no. There's no call for that. And he pushed ahead and he pushed ahead. So bearing in mind, his dad is Anthony Bamford, the current chairman. So the son of the current chairman pushed it forward. It gets better. One of the people involved in the design of the machine was a certain Mr. Burnhope, not Tim, his son. So second generation begat the 715 ADT. Gotta love a bit of that. Good morning, mate. And Kat is doing a good deal there too. Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. I don't know why people don't take out more of those customer agreements to know your costs in advance, particularly in the where we are today, with the fluctuations in everything, fluctuations in every single price there is imaginable. To be able to go into every new year saying, okay, well, there's my costs, they're fixed. What else do I need to worry about? I think that's a fantastic idea. Dan Cullen saying, wow, amazing. Yeah, absolutely. And also there's a bit of a backstory as well, because Tim kind of let on that he wasn't overly keen for his son to join JCB, not because it's not a great employer, because he absolutely is, but because somebody joining with the name Burnhope, there'd be accusations of nepotism and favoritism, and would he be as good as the old man and everything else. So young Mr. Burnhope basically got his mum to sign the forms to allow him to go and interview for JCB. Yeah. First Tim knew about it was when his son had got the gig. So fantastic. I look forward to catching up with the young Mr. Burnhope at some point in the future. If he's such a visionary, I have a few suggestions for him. Apparently he was there yesterday. I didn't see George. I saw Anthony. I didn't see George. But yeah, Dan, I didn't miss your comment on kids. I didn't. I've saved them because it's in keeping with what I've got coming up. Don't worry, I will get to it. I promise. Because it is that time. Well, no, I tell you what. Let me do this very quickly. There we are. That's our Mini Excavator World Cup match today. Much more hotly contested than last night's England game, which was a bore fest, an absolute bore fest. So we've had the votes coming in. Let me get the poll on the screen. There you are. That's what it looks like unfilled in. That's what it looks like filled in. 100%. Yet another whitewash. JCB go through. Lugong go home. All the way to China. Well, they're going all the way home. So JCB go through to the next round, and Lugong are going home. Next match will be, what have we got? Yeah, we've only got 2 matches left in the final round, and the next one will be Komatsu, Japan, versus Sani of China. Yeah, and funnily enough, the final round of the final match of the first round will also be Japan against China, Myanmar against Sunward. So tune in tomorrow if you have any particular thoughts on Komatsu or Sani. Got a funny feeling I know how that one's going to pan out as well. But we shall see. Anyway, people, that pretty much wraps up the main part of this morning's show. I'm going to roll the intro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into kind of a morning monologue. Kind of. You'll see. If you can't stick around for that, please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. I hope to see you again very soon. But if you do have the time and the inclination, I will be back in a moment. Just want to do this one very, very quickly. Jim says, the fella fronted the new ADT was a sound young fella. Does a bit of farming, spent just as much time talking about cattle as we did talking about machines. You can have a good old chinwag with JCB. I won't name names, but you walk onto some of the exhibition stands at a show like Hillhead, and as a member of the press, I sometimes feel that our interactions are a bit transactional. Oh, yes, Mark, come on and have this cold drink, and here's a goodie bag with a hat, and now would you please leave and write nice things about us? Whereas JCB, I could have stood there for the 3 or 4 hours just chewing the fat, much less transactional. Anyway, people, it's morning monologue time. After this, as soon as I find the right button. Now, just to be clear, I had actually written a morning monologue for today. It was standing by, and it was all done. It was dusted, but I'm going to do that one tomorrow, because as I'm fresh back from Hillhead, I do think we need to talk about that first. Now, I want to preface my remarks by stating that I've been attending the Hillhead show for more than 30 years. It's more like 35 years. I think I've only ever actually missed one. I won't bore you with the details, but I missed one. And for years, if anybody ever asked, I travel the world and I get to see these exhibitions. If anyone ever asked, I would always say that Hillhead was my favourite show. I also want to make it clear that although some of what I'm about to say sounds like criticism, but very little of it is actually aimed at the show's organisers, who, in my opinion, to this day, do an incredible job of bringing such a monumental show together. There's not very much small at Hillhead. They're doing it in a live quarry in the middle of a fairly rural town. The logistics of that are staggering, and they manage to do it, and they do it with aplomb. Let me start with the positives. Whoever was responsible for the weather yesterday over-delivered. It was sweltering. But as somebody that's been at, I've been at Hillhead before now and been cold. I've been rained on. One year, I even saw snow. So the fact that it was sunny and it was hot, fantastic. The organisers also flexed with the changing conditions. There's always been a water main around the site where you can fill up water bottles, but given the heat, given the extreme temperatures, they'd also put water stations around the site where you could literally just pick up a cold bottle of water, chug it to your heart's content, and then pick up another one to walk off with. Top work, absolutely fantastic. Now, I also had a couple of kind of flexible meetings planned for while I was at Hillhead, which is always a concern. There's usually no internet connection, and there's certainly no phone signal, certainly once you're down in the pit, which means meeting people without a fixed time and a place is virtually impossible. That's changed. It's changed. I still couldn't get a phone signal, but I did find a Wi-Fi connection several times. There were signs around saying Wi-Fi here, and actually, I've got some Wi-Fi. So that was very, very helpful. When you come in, they've kind of reshuffled the top end. Well, they've reshuffled quite a bit, actually, but they've reshuffled the top end, and there's still a viewing platform. I think it's been relocated. And looking down, the show looked bigger, it looked wider, it looked a bit longer. More to see, which is all good, all positive stuff. Now let's get on to the not so positive comments. So the car parking at Hillhead is a bit of a lottery. You drive in and you're basically driving into the side of a live quarry. And they have marshals there. Now, anytime there are people wearing high-vis vests for 3 days, that's alarm bells, because they were probably, I don't know, teaching children or building houses or mowing someone's lawn yesterday, but now they have the power to drive traffic. So we were directed not to the main car park, which is nice and close and you can just walk straight down. We were put up top, Blue 2 apparently, not the very top, but one of the upper ones. Now, park the car. Fine. And I will point out, I was directed up the hill by one guy in a high vis. At the top of the hill, there was another guy pointing over to where, I mean, there was a line of traffic, but he was pointing for me to follow that line of traffic. The traffic then started to turn left, and there was another guy in a high vis. And then as we turned left and pulled up to a parking space, there was another person in a high vis telling you when to stop. I've been parking cars for quite some time. I don't need 4 people's assistance, but that's all as an aside. Anyway, park the car. Got the gear out, put the suntan lotion on, put the hat on, all the things. I could see where I needed to be, just down the hill, but I wasn't allowed to walk there. Even though it was just down the hill, I had to wait for a bus. And the buses were holding maybe a dozen people. Now, bearing in mind that car park is going to hold several thousand cars, many of which were arriving with 3, 4, 5 people in. So a dozen at a time. There's plenty of buses, but rather than just walking down and starting your day, you're waiting around, waiting for a bus, because apparently I lack the nous to walk down a hill. Anyway, I was in the queue before 8:30, but the doors didn't open until 9. I don't know what went wrong. I mean, aside from the fact that somewhere along the line my name was misspelled, I was down as a visitor rather than as a member of the press, so I couldn't do what I normally do and do you know who I am and jump the queue. So I was stood in the queue, and the queue was divided into 2. We had those that had already booked and got their badges, and those that had not registered. Okay, and there were metal barriers separating the 2. Never the twain shall meet. So we stood in the blazing sunshine for, in my case, maybe 40 minutes, and then the doors opened and we funneled along in our 2 perfect lines. And then you get indoors and there's nothing to divide them. So all of a sudden, where it had all been organised, badges that way, non-badges that way, became chaos. I've got a badge. I don't need a badge. I've got a badge. I want a badge. Where do I get my badge? Chaos. And what I found staggering with this was there was actually a very flustered young lady running up and down the aisles outside saying, "Have you got a badge?" "No, but I've pre-registered." "Right, you're in the right line." "Have you got a badge?" "No, I need to register." "Okay, you're in the right." So they've done all of that. You get indoors, bedlam. Okay. Then came my least favourite part of the day. Actually, it's my second least favourite part of the day, although they're both the same thing. You get past the check-in area, and you're then required to walk through aisle upon aisle upon aisle of stands, indoor stands, little booths that are basically of no interest. It's widgets. There's a couple of magazine publishers in there. There's trade associations in there, none of which is of any interest. Now, the way you do this, you go in and you're going left and right and left and right and left and right until you finally make it to the exit. Now, there are shortcuts. You could literally walk through and then cut through and go straight out into the big wide world and actually start your working day. But no, they insist that you literally go through all of those things. Shortcuts that you're not permitted to use. So imagine going to the supermarket for a loaf of bread, but in order to get your loaf of bread, you've got to go through ladies' wear, baby food, dog food, cleaning products, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And it's even worse on the way out. Okay. I'd spent the entire day, 9 until about 3:30, blazing sun, literally knackered. Couldn't wait to get in the car, crank up the aircon, and sit down and call out. But no, there are literal sentries on the doors. So once again, you've got up the hip, you've gone up the whole road, which does seem to get steeper every single year. Now, I'm sure that's my advancing age. Your car is over there. You want to go from here to there, but no, you have to do this. And at one point there was a guy stood there and he had the door open, and I could have gone out there and I could have got to my car a lot quicker. And I walked up and he literally slammed the door. I went, "No, you've got to go." So I head down, didn't look at any of these show stands because I'm not interested. I wasn't interested on the way in and I wasn't interested on the way out. So I just had to go back and forth and back and forth. finally made it into the show. And the show has been reshuffled a bit to the point where the bit near the face kind of felt a bit skewed, a bit off. Caterpillar, or Finning more specifically, for the past couple of Hillheads have brought nothing really but software. They've been the odd machine, but they haven't actually had a machine display. And so as a result, possibly of that, they lost their place. Hyundai took their place right up against the face, which meant that Caterpillar and Finning had to move kind of around and back a bit. Which is fine. Everyone needs their moment in the spotlight. And everyone seemed to have sort of moved about, and I thought that was good. I thought that was going to be good. I thought, good, we're going to have more focus on actual metal, more focus, hopefully, on moving metal. But no, not really. Last time I was at Hillhead, the demonstrations were very, very sparse. You'd have like a 10, 15 minute of activity, excavators excavating, crushers crushing, wheel loaders loading, and ADTs doing ADT things, and then it would grind to a halt. This time around, I actually thought what they'd done was a good idea. So they had timed. I think there was, the ones I was aware of was at 11 and at 2. And at 11 o'clock, I think Hyundai started things, and then they passed off to maybe Komatsu, and Komatsu did a bit, and so on. So I arrived in time for one of them, and saw a bit of action. I saw a bit of the Hyundai display. I saw an XCMG loader working, but then nothing much happened. There was a young lady, I don't know where she was, but she was talking to various representatives of the various companies. So what are we looking at now? Oh, blah, 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 blah. It is what it is. But as a result, as I say, I saw Hyundai, I saw XCMG, and nothing much else. So I thought, well, okay, I'll pop back a bit later. And I did. I went back, still nothing happening. And in the end, I gave up. I mean, I literally, the bit that looks best on film, as far as I'm concerned, is the moving metal. I've got virtually none of it. Virtually none of it. Here's a weird thing. I have previously bemoaned the increasing presence of technology at these exhibitions. Personally, I'm more interested in the hardware than the software. And there wasn't a huge amount of tech on display at Hillhead. And that should have been a good thing, but it actually wasn't. If you actually strip away the tech, you're reminded just how little there is to choose between some of the major brands. And to give you a really clear indication of that. Now, bearing in mind, I do a very specific job. I was filming on the Hitachi stand, and I was looking at a camera. I had a camera in my hand, I was looking at the camera, and I was on the Hitachi stand. And I was walking around, and the next thing I knew, I was actually on the Hyundai stand next door. There wasn't any demarcation, which I wouldn't necessarily expect. But it was only when I wanted to identify a machine, it was like, I've changed stands. And I didn't even notice. The fact that they're both orange, probably, and the fact that I'm knocking on a bit, maybe that none of that helped. But literally, I'm looking at an excavator, I'm looking at another excavator. Oh, bloody hell, look, they're two different brands. Now we get to the reason I've parked some of those comments, because we've got a couple of real gripes. These are real bugbears of mine. Just over a month ago, I was at the Somoto show in Italy, and there were working displays that were so close that I could have reached out and touched the machines and touched the attachments. There were barriers between men and machines, but they were. I mean, in one instance, I think it was may have been steel wrist. I think the barrier was about knee high. And had I wanted to, had I been mental, had I been, suicidal, I could have reached out and touched a bucket or a pulverizer. I didn't, obviously, because I'm a grown up and I know what plant can do. At Hillhead, in fact, at all UK shows, there is a huge barrier between the punters and the machines. At the face at Hillhead, there's a chest-high fence, and it's not just chest-high, it's double depth. So you've got a post and a fence, and then behind that, you've got exactly the same thing again. So it would be easier. it's one of those shows. It would actually be easier if you were small and you could look through the fence rather than trying to peer over it. Okay, now hold that thought about being small. The point I'm making here is this is a quarry and construction equipment show for quarry and construction professionals. But apparently, despite the fact that we are around this stuff 24/7, 365 days a year, we can't be trusted. Some of the kit was too far away. There was a big Zoomline excavator working at the top of the face. And I say big excavator. I'd love to be more specific, but it was so far away, I can't actually tell you what the model number was. In fact, it was so far away, it was probably in a different postcode area. Anyone that went to Hillhead to see that Zoomline excavator would have needed either binoculars or a drone. Okay. Here's the reason I've parked some of those comments. And this, we need to look at this. Bearing in mind what I was saying about the House of Lords statement about encouraging children into Minecraft and stuff. This is the most preposterous bit of the law. For reasons I won't bore you with, I had to go to the organiser's office, not the press office, but the organiser's office. And there was a guy behind a desk, nice fella, you know, and he was trying to help me with my inquiry. And while he was talking to me, and I'm going to reenact it, he was literally talking to me, trying to answer my question. He suddenly went, "Child, child!" He literally, and I'm not exaggerating, he literally shouted, "Child!" He thought he'd spotted a child among the crowds outside, but his reaction, you'd have thought that there was a Bengal tiger armed with a knife outside. I mean, it was like he'd seen the most horrific thing he'd ever seen. Now, I didn't stick around to find out whether a child had actually made it past the 15 levels of security to get that far and was now marauding the site, causing chaos. But here's the point, right? And this is where, as an industry and as a nation, we have lost the plot. There were hundreds of big, powerful, sexy machines on display at Hillhead, tens of thousands of tons of steel inspiration that could encourage the next generation of operators or equipment owners to consider this as a career choice. But none of the younger generation gets to see it. Jim's mentioned it, and I will find his comment in a minute. Jim's mentioned it. There are signs about no under 16s allowed everywhere. Has anyone done the research? Are German, American, French, Italian, Spanish children better behaved at exhibitions? Are they considered more expendable? Or is this just another example of the UK's obsession with all things health and safety? I was talking to one of the exhibitors who had gone into the show, let me think, I think it would have been day before yesterday, so Monday morning. They'd already built the stand, and all their products were in place. They just wanted to do a bit of a tidy up, push a broom around, make sure the fridge was on to keep the drinks cold and everything else. That was their plan. And they went down to the show. Now, bearing in mind, they'd already been on site for the best part of a week. They built the stand, they'd lowered the various bits and pieces into place. And somebody said, hang on, have you done your induction? Our what? Have you done your induction? You need to go through an induction. And the person the person that I know said, thought, I don't want any part of this. So yes, where did you do it? And she panicked and went, in the tent. And they went, oh yeah, good, fine, you carry on. So there was no actual check, but somebody needed to say, have you done an induction? First thing, if you are exhibiting at Hillhead or Plantworks or Intermat or Bauma or ConExpo, MineExpo or any of the other exhibitions, the chances are you are on and off construction, demolition, quarry and mine sites daily or weekly. Do we really need an induction for somebody to go and make sure that the fridge is on? What about this? no children, chest-high fencing, inductions to get in the site. I saw several stands handing out beer. Now, I know it was hot yesterday, and even as a reformed drinker, I still understand the appeal of a cold beer in the sunshine. But where does that sit with the health and safety police? Can't have children. You can't get too near the equipment. You can have a beer. Probably, if you were that way inclined, if you planned your route around the show, you could probably have several beers. You could probably have several beers, catch a bus back up to your car, drive home. Does that not feel a bit disjointed to you? So here, for what it's worth, my final thoughts. Did I have a good day? Yes. Did I have a good day? Yes, absolutely. I caught up with some old friends, made some new ones, saw some fantastic kit, even though it wasn't moving as much as I might have liked. The weather was fantastic, and thankfully, plenty of water about. So I tip my hat to the organisers for making sure everybody stayed hydrated. But despite the expansion and the widening and everything else, I don't really feel like the show's moved on. There is Wi-Fi, which is definitely a step forward. But I can't help thinking that if I showed you a photo from Hillhead 2024 and Hillhead 2026, I reckon you'd be pretty hard-pressed to tell the difference. As I said at the outset, I don't actually believe the organisers are necessarily to blame for all this. And I also, I do need to say this. I've been lucky enough to be at both ConExpo and Samota this year. I've had trips to Bobcat, Volvo, JCB in the last few months. So as a result, the show contained very few surprises. A couple of new wheel loaders on the JCB stand that I wasn't expecting, but apart from that, I'd seen it all before, including on the Komatsu stand as well. So no great surprises. But here's the thing. In fact, here's two things. When Hillhead rolls around again in 2028, it will happen just a few months after Bauma. So there will be even fewer surprises at the next one. But here's the other point, and I've already alluded to this, but I'm going to go over it again. Next year, there will be not one, but two construction equipment exhibitions here in the UK. I'm personally of the mind that Hillhead taking place every 2 years is plenty. It's enough. 2 shows in the same year feels like overkill. And there's also the danger that they might both just dilute each other. Imagine, let's say Kubota. Kubota are faced, they only have a limited marketing budget, as do all the manufacturers. Kubota now have to choose between, do I go to Plant Works at the NEC or do I go to the UK plant operators thing, wherever that is? I can only choose one. Let's say they choose the NEC. So if you're going to the other one and you want to see Kubota, you're not going to. Are people going to attend both shows? I'll get to the comment in a moment. Dan said the same thing. We do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for our shows, for Hillhead and for Plantworks, SED back in the day, exactly the same. The guys that I'm speaking to now, by and large, are working. Why not do Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday? So that the guys that are actually living and breathing this stuff can go along, see the kit, enjoy the show without having to lose a day's pay. Given the fact that you're giving up your time to attend these exhibitions, are you going to give up 2 days or are you going to roll the dice? Plantworks or the UK Plant Operators Show? And if the exhibitors, and I'm sure they won't, if the manufacturers don't support both, if they decide to choose, you will only see a part of the industry unless you go to both. You have to give up 2 days to see the entire sector. I don't believe that serves the organisers, and it certainly does not serve the punters. Okay? So will I be going to Hillhead 2028? I've got to be honest, I don't know. It's been a fixture of my working calendar for more than 3 decades. And I do have a lot of nostalgia for the place, happy memories. Some of my closest friends and allies are there. But I came away yesterday hot, bothered, not disappointed, not even underwhelmed, but just, It's possible that I've done too much this year. ConExpo and Samota, Volvo, JCB, Bobcat. I've done a lot. I've seen a lot. Maybe I am exhibitioned out. Maybe I'm suffering from overexposure to plant and equipment. But Jim said the same. Not overwhelmed. I spoke to a couple of the guys in the press, and not. I mean, in actual fact, one of them, I didn't experience this, but one of them said, Hillhead in years gone by, you as a member of the press, you've got the press office, and you come one, come all, we'll all stand around and have a good chin wag, and we'll be very welcoming. He said that they are actually hostile towards the press. I don't blame them. Some of the press are absolute arseholes. I don't blame them for that one bit. But these are the people that are going to spread your message. And I do get the impression that to a degree, some were held at arm's length. You'll have to ask me again. Around about June, July 2027, will I be going to Hillhead? As it stands at the moment, I actually don't know. I can't believe I'm saying that. Because it's, as I say, every 2 years it's been a fixture of my calendar. Now, not so sure. And I promise you, it's not down to the fact that I'm knocking on a bit and the whole road is bloody steep. I'm only joking. I didn't run up it, but it wasn't a problem. I wasn't out of breath and complaining about my hips and my knees or anything like that. It's not an age thing. It's that it kind of thing. It might be overexposure to exhibitions, in which case it's a me problem rather than a them problem. But I wonder how many people, apart from the absolute enthusiasts that were there to see the big diggers and to collect baseball caps and stuff like that, I wonder how many people came away from that feeling upbeat, positive, inspired. Because I didn't. I really didn't. Loads of comments, and I do need to go back because I've been holding those in abeyance. Let's have a look. Let me go back to the ones that I marked earlier. There you are. All the no kids under 16 signs, fucking piss take. We've got the House of Lords suggesting that children should be encouraged to play Minecraft to get them inspired about this industry. Listen, I'm sure there's some very clever people behind that study, and maybe there's a degree of truth in that. Maybe that idea of we build a thing here, I could build a thing, maybe. But to my mind, there is a much, much closer link. Rather than play a game in which you build things in the hope that that might inspire you to really build things, how about show them how to build things? Show them the equipment that does it. And of all the UK shows, SED, Plantworks, the Exec Hire Show and all of those, the sexiest of the lot is Hillhead, because it's got the biggest equipment. Big excavators, big dump trucks, big dozers. If that doesn't inspire children, I don't know what would. But we will never know, because the health and safety police insist that there are no children. Are we really expecting them to walk into an exhibition and go feral? And what about children but accompanied by an adult? We can do that in a cinema. There are cinemas where there might be a pair of boobs on the screen for a couple of minutes or a couple of seconds. Someone might say fuck, but if you're accompanied by an adult, you're considered prepared for that. We don't have that here. Now, I'm not saying we open the doors and say, anyone can come along and you have 5-year-olds turning up on their own and wandering about. Not that that's going to happen anyway. But surely accompanied by an adult, surely that overcomes it. Dan, reiterating what I said earlier, these shows should be a 4-day outing. So we Thursdays for business interests, Friday, Saturdays for school tours and family days out. This is the problem. These shows in UK compared to the UK to Europe. Yeah, all of the European shows end on a weekend. And I'm talking here primarily about children, but it's not just children. Families. If you work in this industry, you're working hard, you're working long hours, you probably don't get to see the family as much as you would like. Even if you're working from home, you're traveling to and from work from home. But you leave before the missus wakes up, you get in as she's about ready to go to bed, you might have a cup of tea together, but that's about your lot. But if you could have that on a Saturday, so okay, it might not be the most interesting thing for her, but you could spend some time together, go to the exhibition, meet a few people, have a bag of crisps in the sunshine and a can of Coke or whatever it might be, but you can do it as a family. Take the kids along and everyone's a winner. No, we don't do that. It happens in the middle of a working week. I think that's a problem. When have you ever seen kids injured at a show? Look at Digger World. Never had an accident, and they get kids daily. Yeah, and they're not just looking. There are some exhibits at Digger World where you can literally, or Digger World or Digger Land, I think. Can't remember. Doesn't matter. But there are actual, not rides, but there are bits. Last time I was there, which is a good few years ago, they've actually got skid steers. Plonk a kid in the machine, and they can drive it. They've maintained safety. Apparently, we as grown adults can't. More comments to come. Mick Norton says, we've had 25 construction ministers since 2001. Yeah, no gold watches for long service in that job, is there? And funny enough, we were talking about this yesterday. You would think by now that we would have figured this out, but apparently we haven't. My local MP for many years was a guy called Chris Grayling. Tory MP, looked to be destined for great things at one point, and then wasn't. But during his time there, he was various jobs, but he was also education minister, and he was a transport minister, and he had no specific qualifications or links to either of those things. He'd never been a teacher, he'd never designed a road, but he was given both those jobs. Do you think we would have had the same debacle with Keir Starmer's plans for 1.5 million new homes if the housing minister had a background in housing? Would that not be an idea? Just saying. Lee Mansfield, did you sort out that day out with JCB? What we was talking about a few weeks ago? Still working on it. I saw him again yesterday. I mentioned it again. The problem we've got with JCB is, for one thing, their factory is incredibly busy. In a couple of weeks' time, they're hosting the Live Golf Tour as well. And when you actually start to look at it, I mean, I can't say they shared the whole thing with me, but when you look at the diary they have, we've got dealers from Russia coming in, not Russia, and we've got dealers coming in from Italy on that day, the Spanish are the day after, the French are the day after that, then we've got the Germans. Then the following week, we've got the golf, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And then the week after that, we've got people coming in from America, and then we've got the Indians. There's no gaps. And that's what I need. I desperately need a gap. Dan says, I heard parking and traffic was a nightmare. I don't know. We got there well ahead. So parking, piece of cake. I didn't want it. I ended up parking where I didn't want to park, but that aside, parking, not a problem. And getting in, I mean, we literally drove into Buxton, came in around the back way, which you're kind of advised not to do, but it's the route I know. Literally just drove up to the entrance, joined the queue. I was probably from the very entrance to the site, actually in the town of Buxton, to parking my car 5 minutes. No more than that at all. There was the issue with the bus, but Jim says I was there, bright and breezy, so it was right outside the entrance. Yeah. A bus. Yes, a bus. And as I say, when you think I'm here and I want to be there, I can see where I want to be, and I'm not allowed to walk because apparently I'm a danger to myself. Just to be clear to the organisers of Hillhead and of Plant Works and all these other shows, I've been walking for about 60 years now. It took me a while to get the hang of it when I was a toddler, but once I got it, I've been doing it a lot, and I've not fallen down. Not ever. All right, I fell down a few times, but that was alcohol induced. I can walk. Now I'm glad I didn't go. I'd have lost my patience. Yeah, do you know it's a funny thing. Maybe the 5-hour journey. Maybe because I got stuck in traffic there and I got stuck in traffic back. Maybe I'm feeling a little more negative than is perhaps necessary. But I don't think so. You know, I went and I wanted to enjoy it. And there were bits that I did, you know, as I say, I bumped into a lady there. We'd organised to meet. She'd basically come all the way from Japan, partly to attend the show and partly to meet me. Yeah, that's an honour for me. You know, that's a pretty big deal. You know, and I bumped into people, Malcolm Dyke being one of them. You know, people that I've spoken to via this show and never met face to face, and I got to meet a lot of those yesterday. That's fantastic. You know, and I had some great chats with some of the exhibitors and, you know, good old chinwag and everything else. But my overwhelming impression was, yeah, all right, okay, may do it again in 2 years' time. Had Collins any machines there? Not that I noticed. Was it a little midget fella? I did one there. I hope they tried to collar him, and he gave them a proper. Do you know? I didn't know. I don't know. Genuinely, this guy just went, child, like snake. You know, it was that degree of horror and outrage, and then, you know, despite the fact that he was in the middle of answering my query, he decided now was the time to bugger off. So I didn't wait around. And I mean, I didn't spot a child, but to have that reaction, you know, okay, the rules say no children. I get that. I don't agree with it, but I get that. So go out and say to the guy who's with the child, sorry, mate, you're going to have to leave. No children. Not, you know, there's a cobra running loose around the place. Nonsense. What? Yes. What? Hang on. I wish I could do an Irish accent. What? Now you've got to do a site induction for a show that's getting worse every year. Handing out beer, but have they asked, are you driving? That's unbelievable. Yeah. 99.9999% of everyone that attends Hillhead does so via some form of transportation. It's not the easiest place to get to by train, not the easiest place to get to by bus. There's a few helicopters, but there are a shit ton of cars. So lots of people are driving, and you see cars arriving with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people on board. There's minibuses arriving with half a dozen or more people. So most people are driving. And I spotted 2. I was made aware of another one, but I didn't see it personally. At least 2 stands that were giving out beer. Now, 1 beer, probably not a big deal. But if you are the type of person that is that way inclined, you could probably go round a couple of times. You could probably go from one stand to another where there's beer, and you could then go from that one to another one where there's beer. And at the end of it, there is a possibility you're getting behind the wheel of a car. Is that a consideration? You know, we don't want children because children might get hurt on our premises. But you can have a beer because if anyone gets hurt, it probably won't be on our premises. Is that a consideration? Jim says Hillhead could easily be 9 a.m. till 9 p.m. for 2 days, 2 of the 3 days. Then I wouldn't need to miss a day's money. Yeah. Yeah. There is the reality of it. You know, I mean, I in a roundabout way, I kind of earn money from these shows. It's not a consideration for me. I'm basically paid to be there. The people that are, the real enthusiasts, and I do think there's a distinction here. There are those that plant managers, fleet managers, that kind of thing. Those that are responsible for buying equipment. They attend a show in the same way that I do. Their wages kind of hinge upon them doing it. But my lot, the press, and those plant managers are outnumbered 100, 500, 1,000 to 1 by operators and enthusiasts. And all of those operators and enthusiasts, as it stands today, and this is not purely a Hillhead thing, it's a plant works thing, it was an SED thing back in the day, all of them are required to take a day off work, probably lose a day's money, just to pursue their passion. If the organisers actually had some consideration for their biggest audience, they'd have either, as Jim says, run it till late, or actually have it on a Saturday as well. It's their biggest audience. If you think about, let's take Flannery. Flannery have probably got a couple of people taking care of plant acquisition. They've probably got an overall fleet manager. They might have 1,000 operators on their books in one way or another, more. So we've geared an exhibition towards 2, 3, 4 people from Flannery, when there's another 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people that could and probably would be there if they could. Or depending on location, 2 to 3 days, pay B&B's travel, so lose almost a week just to go and see it. If it was Thursday, Friday, Saturday, make more sense, and family days out. I've said this before, back when I was doing the PR for the Caterpillar dealer Leverton. They used to host an open day over at Windsor, and it was attended. I wouldn't say it was well attended, but it was always on a Wednesday. You'd go along on a Wednesday, and it would start about 8:30 in the morning, peter out around about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and you'd get a couple of hundred people there. If the sun was shining, and times were good, you might get a couple of hundred people there. And then somebody had the bright idea of, why don't we do this on a Saturday instead? So we're not dragging people away from work. And what we'll do, we'll have a clown over there, and we'll have a bouncy castle for the kids. We'll have a little setup so that the ladies can have a glass of wine while the blokes are talking business and everything else. And that couple of hundred people turned into 1,000 people. It's not hard maths, people. I won't be going to the NEC. Might even go to Scott Plant. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I say this every year. That's looking more and more appealing to me. I've got no intention of going to the NEC. The other one, not really seeing that either. Scott Plant might be the idea, or maybe I'll just do a Balmer, and that'll be me, or an Intermat rather next year. Or maybe I'll do an Intermat, and just that'll be me done. Don't know. Dan says this is the biggest problem in the UK. HSE bullshit for shows, as when kids are with parents, don't do anything out of place and are good as gold. I would love to have a talk with these organisers. Yeah. Again, I'll reiterate this, because I don't want to piss off the organisers. I don't want to be barred from future Hillheads. I don't believe this is them. This is either having to satisfy the HSE or possibly satisfying, I think it's Tarmac that own the quarry, and maybe Tarmac have to satisfy the HSE. So what they do day to day in a live quarry, they then replicate on an exhibition day. I'm not blaming the organisers, but surely something's got to give. All of those exhibits yesterday that some little Johnny or little Jane could have looked at and gone, fuck me, I want a bit of that. That's me. That's my career panned out. Look at that dump truck. Look at that dozer. I want me a piece of that. Instead of which the reaction was, child. You see from Steve's vids, when he was in a show demonstrating, the kids are there, excited and loving it. Yeah. Listen, Ed and Steve put on a fantastic show, but the thing they do most, the thing they do best, engaging with children. handing out sweets, handing out baseball caps, getting the kids involved, getting them to see the equipment up close. And just to flip that narrative on its head very quickly, I've had a comment here from Andy Thornton, which is very, very worthwhile taking care of. But let me put this in front of you. There is a danger that our overprotective way towards children and construction equipment might actually turn out to be counterintuitive. If a child is never exposed to dogs or fires or traffic or knives, they don't know any better about interacting with those things. In this industry, we keep children as far away as is humanly possible, not just at exhibitions, but on sites as well. We have these, head height holdings to make sure people can't pry and see. Are we breeding a generation of people that just will have no understanding of not just the good, but also the bad of equipment? I'll stroll through this construction site. What could possibly go wrong? Whereas if we'd exposed them to it, shown them the heft and the speed and the weight and the maneuverability, shown them all those things, they might hopefully be a bit more wary. And not just wary as children, but when they come onto site, it's not everything's a shock. They've grown up. They've seen it before. They've been to exhibitions. They've been past a demolition site. They've been past a construction site. They know how equipment moves. And we've bred that out. Andy Thornton, good morning, Andy, says it's not a health and safety issue. It's a culpability issue. It's all about covering asses if something goes wrong. No one's worried about kids being at these events. It's blame. It's if it goes wrong. Yeah. That's exactly what it is. And Andy has got his hat. He like Malcolm Dyke, is a proud owner of a new Bobcat hat. 2 different hats, but yeah, good. 2001, now that's unbelievable. Is this because they're not interested in the industry? Just do it for a year and bugger off? Yeah. That's about the size of it. Lee Mansfield says, thanks for that, mate. Just let me know, please. And after you sort it out with JCB, I will, trust me, the day that JCB comes over and say, Mark, we have a date, I will be shouting it from the rooftops. What a waste of money paying for buses unless I was leaving from the bottom of the road. Listen, I mean, and here's the irony, right? I was forbidden. Somebody actually said, no, you can't do that. I was forbidden from walking down the hill from my car to the exhibition. And when I left, I walked up the hill, went back to my car. So they made my life going downhill, the easy bit, they made that harder. And then they made the hard bit, i.e. hiking up a near vertical haul road, they made that easier. Somebody can explain that to me? I'd love to hear about it. Jim says, Collins did have an ADT there and a crusher on the JCB display. It's the one that should have been in my yard. Should have been in the yard my lad works in. Okay. Can you add wannabe designers and YouTubers to that list? I certainly can. I certainly can. As days are longer, even on a Thursday and Friday, have a 9 p.m. finish, Saturday 7 p.m. So families and kids get to visit. Look at the truck shows, kids go with families, and that's some plant company people too. Yeah. Farming shows too. I don't know what the vintage. I don't know what all the vintage shows are like. I've been to a few in the past, not been for a few years, and there's children there, and that goes off without an incident, without injury. As Andy said, it's a culpability. That's what it is. But honestly, I mean, I keep replaying this in my head, and I know it sounds like I'm exaggerating, but to break off from a conversation and just shout "child." I mean, I've never seen anything like it. Preposterous. Travel to the show on a Friday afternoon? Yeah, it would be fantastic. And listen, not that I'm particularly concerned about the local economy in Buxton, but people might pop. Oh, I'm going to the show on the Saturday. I'll go up on the Friday night. We'll have a weekend there. We'll check into a hotel, Airbnb, B&B, whatever it might be. Stay at a local pub. We'll see the sights around Buxton, which is lovely, by the way. Maybe that's good for the local economy as well. See, I feel this is a big problem. People are afraid to talk up and explain sense to them what they're missing, and industry is missing. Yeah, I do feel like we have bits of the industry that take place separately from others. We have a skill shortage in the industry, a skill shortage so severe that it has now got the House of Lords involved. Okay, so it's gone to the highest authority in the land. And their solution is get kids to play Minecraft. Maybe if they were a bit better connected to the industry, maybe they might say, okay, Hillhead, yeah, we're quite happy for you to host this exhibition in a working quarry for 2, 3, or maybe 4 days in a week. But part of your license for that does require you to do something to help us alleviate this skill shortage. We insist that on an afternoon or a day, Saturday maybe, that you allow children in. Now, if that's what it takes, even the equipment at the face, park it up, take the keys out. It's not as good, it's not as inspiring, but if you're really that concerned about health and safety, let children in and make the machine, all the equipment static. It wouldn't be my preferred choice, but if that's the way you're inclined, then do that. Don't just put a carpet ban on them. You imagine the number of mainly men that went home yesterday afternoon, bit of sunburn on their neck, lanyard still round their neck, dust on their boots, and they got a bag that's got a JCB hat and a Hyundai hat and a camera roll full of photographs of all this sexy machines, and there's little Johnny. He's 8, 9, 10 years old. How was today, Dad? It's fucking brilliant. It was brilliant. I saw this digger. There was a dozer there, 90 tons, big ADT. All right. Should have been there. I don't know why they're always called Johnny, but little Johnny should have been there. I think they're doing more damage than keeping children away from the industry. I think this is well, they're not exposed to it. HSC and knocking, and shows need to open up. Yeah. Well played, Jim. That fellow that shouted "child" seems to have perfectly described himself without even realizing it. Yeah, and that was the thing. He shouted "child," and he got up from behind his desk and he literally ran out, and 2 people followed him. I mean, once I'd stopped shaking my head in disbelief, I just went, well, the inquiry I had isn't going to get answered. I may as well go back about my business. Never did get it resolved. Didn't see a child. Yeah. Bet most of the families will be agricultural and construction families. I wonder if they had a bigger quarry in Midlands so more equipment and tech companies can get in, make it the size of Balmer. You'd be hard pushed to make it the size of Balmer. Balmer is about the size of the Midlands, to be perfectly honest. But yeah. My missus has no idea what I do all day. She says I just play with my knobs. Less said about that, the better. I didn't know I had 2. Where's the other one? She would probably say it's on my forehead. Families should be able to go. Long way to the point, but yes, there you are. Families should be able to go. And just on that subject, I'm of a certain age. I'm 61. Wife is a couple of years younger than me. But when I was a younger working guy, I used to spend quite a lot of time away from home. And time with wife originally and then children after that was precious, to the point where sometimes it'd be a lovely sunny Sunday. And I think, I bet I could probably go fishing now. But yeah, poor cow. She's been alone with the kids all week. Now I'll blow it out. That there's thousands, tens of thousands, possibly even hundreds of thousands of young guys out there, and girls, but mainly guys out there. They're slogging their guts out 5 and 6 days a week. And come the weekend, they're left with a choice. Should I go and look at some diggers in a big hole in the ground, or should I do some chores around the house? And we're not accommodating those people. I keep going back to young people, but it's not just young people. It's the industry professionals. Look at Jim. Let's use Jim as an example. Jim wasn't there. Well, he wasn't there with a shopping list. I mean, there's probably a lot of stuff that he spotted there that he quite liked, but he wasn't there with a shopping list. He wasn't there to buy. He wasn't there to network as such. He was there to look and to learn and to enjoy and to appreciate. Admittedly, he's fairly local. He can be in and out of the show in 40 minutes or whatever it might be. But think about all of the thousands upon thousands and thousands of other gyms out there that, for one reason or another, work commitments, finance, family commitments, one way or another, aren't able to do that. So not only are we not inspiring the next generation, we're not doing much to inspire the current generation either. Dan says, was it an alien child? Given the reaction, may have been. May have had 2 heads and 3 horns, given the reaction. People, I am so hot sat here. I'm sweltering hot. I'm going to call it a day. I'll be back tomorrow. Normal service will resume. We'll actually have a proper morning monologue for you tomorrow, rather than me just rambling about things, what I saw. And another round of the Mini Excavator World Cup, which will feature Komatsu against Sani. And Dan says, have a great day, guys. Just before I echo Dan's sentiments, could be 35 degrees today, depending where you are in the country. Have a drink. And when you've had a drink, get yourself another one and have that a little bit later on. And then have another one. You're going to need it, people. Stay hydrated, stay safe, stay healthy. I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for your time. Thanks for all your input. See you tomorrow.